quick shout out, Todd, because like a lot of people might not know how long you've been in the game for. I mean, Todd, you've been in the game since day one, and not a lot of people might not know it. It's to me, when I see all these guys in the game, I always, I just go, man, you don't know what the game is about because you ain't even been in it. And when I see guys like you still involved, and like these new jacks come in, like they may not give you your respect, and they need to give you your respect because you've been in the game just as long as anybody. You know what I'm saying? So, if y'all out there, y'all gotta recognize Todd been in the game since day one.
All right, so this is Todd Atkins, and I'm here with Brijatte Garcia. She's a pretty newer MMA fighter, but looking into her background, apparently she had a lot of stand-up fights, and she's from an area called Burleson, right? Burleson, Texas, outside of Fort
Yes.
Worth.
Yes, Burleson, that's the high school I went to.
Yeah. So what I want to give you a chance to do for anyone who may not know, just kind of introduce yourself a little bit.
Okay. I am Brijatte Garcia. I train out of Delarosa MMA. I'm 18. I'm about to turn 19. Um, Mostly I have a stronger grappling background. I've had a lot of fights like stand-up Muay Thai kickboxing as of right now. Especially since I've just gotten into my MMA, like fully MMA career. I started doing MMA when I was 10. But I started mostly with grappling and everything and focused on wrestling all throughout high school. But now we're kicking back into MMA, and a lot of striking opportunities are what's came up, and that's why most of my fights have been striking. But we're hoping for MMA fight in March. So,
Now, when
yep.
someone starts out that young,
Mhm.
usually it's because they have family that's already in the gym. Was that the case
Mhm.
with you?
No, my not none of my parents did any like sports really. My dad did more sports. My dad did boxing for a little bit, but it wasn't like while I was a kid. It was when he was like in high school, way younger. I did every sport you could think, like volleyball, basketball. I did all those. Never liked the idea of team sports. And so my dad always watched UFC when I was growing up.
Oh,
Like he watched it from the start of it to where it is now. And I was like, I think I can do that, Dad. Like I can do that. And he was like, oh, like okay. My dad has three girls. So he's like, if you want to do that, then yeah, I'd love to help you do that. So that's how it all started.
so there had to be some connection, so that was it.
Yeah, that was a connection, yeah.
Because it's almost never where some parent just randomly takes their kid into
No,
jujitsu or
yeah.
MMA.
And if it is, it's mostly like little boys, you know. They're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I'll take my little boy to go." But other than that, but no, yeah, and it just started with grappling and evolved from there.
So let's talk about the wrestling. Was that something he pushed you into, or was that something that you gravitated toward?
So I started with jujitsu, and then whenever I started with jujitsu when I was in like fifth grade, did that for years. And then when I started high school, I wanted to do a sport in school. And I didn't want to do anything that drove me away from jujitsu or MMA or anything. So wrestling would help me evolve in that. And I knew I wanted to wrestle. I didn't think I'd love it as much as I did. And I fell in love with wrestling. I did that for 4 years. I would do MMA in the summer, but for the most part, I dedicated like my 4 years of high school to wrestling and to growing myself there. Like I said, every once in a while, I'd go into MMA and keep up with my striking, but I focused on tournaments, wrestling nationally, all those things.
Now, you know, you were very successful in high school. Why did you not decide to continue at all?
So I was in a very like I was really debating going back and forth on like whether I would want to go to college and pursue that or do MMA. And I just truly feel like college for me, I'm not a big school person. And I just feel like after college and college wrestling and everything like that, you go to college wrestling and you wrestle, and then after that you pursue that job. And I would want my job to be within either wrestling or MMA. And I was like, I think it's just so much smarter for me to truly pursue MMA right now and fully dedicate my time to where it can be my full time job. instead of stopping after college like how I would.
How are the parents about it?
Oh, my parents fully support it.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They always told me like we're big believers on, college is great and it can it's good for some people,
Mhm.
but if you truly believe like I'm just not a school person, I don't like it and I don't want to be a doctor or a lawyer, do what you think is best for you. And so yeah, they've supported me all throughout.
So kind of tell me, because you said you had a lot of stand-up fights before
Mhm.
MMA. Why do you think it happened that way?
Well, for sure, me and my coach Mark, we've been talking about it and stuff, and it's for the weight that I'm going. A lot of the girls don't really, I think a lot of the girls just don't have the grappling experience for it. So I've just been getting pushed a lot of kickboxing, Muay Thai fights and stuff, which is great because I can always better my striking and everything. Like I said, I'm more comfortable grappling for sure, but I'm starting to really get comfortable in my striking, and all these fights are helping with that. So yeah, the moment I am able to have someone my weight and do MMA, I think it's gonna be a lot of fun and I can't wait.
How many stand-up fights did you have before?
I did one smoker before my first amateur debut. So right when I graduated, I did like a smoker and I won that one. And then my amateur debut, I won, which was kickboxing, and then my fight with Peak just recently,
Hmm.
I won, which was 4 ounce Muay Thai.
Yeah, and you got a stoppage in that one.
Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah,
got a KO. Yeah.
I saw the clips. That was the one where she was kind of out on her feet, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Now maybe talk about, you know, was it more you that decided that you were going to do the MMA, or did you have any talks with your parents about? Did they have any play into it, or was it just you and your coach?
It was me and it was mostly talks with me and my parents, especially my dad. My dad's very like really good at pushing out and like communicating with other coaches and people to like figure out what's best and everything. And my coach too, also with like talking to my coach, Mark, his wife was a wrestler. She was like basically in the same position I'm in. Um, she wrestled throughout high school and everything, and then after did MMA. And he just told me, he was like, if you feel like college would be a better idea and you can get your education also do wrestling, like great, go do that. But he was able to like explain to me how just go with your gut feeling and everything. And they're really one of the greatest gym that I've trained with to really help me pursue the goal that I'm trying to achieve.
So when you started training jiu-jitsu, what kind of tell me what techniques or positions you felt like you were picking up quickly?
Oh my gosh, my wrestling helped my jujitsu so much. It's insane. And it's crazy too because when I started with jujitsu, I loved pulling guard. Like, didn't like wrestling, right? And then I got into wrestling, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I hate pulling guard. Like, I would never do that. But definitely, in jujitsu, it's your like body pressure, knowing your body pressure, knowing like the body and how it's if it's moving this way, if I settle this way, they'll fall. Like being able to recognize those things and mount, side control, those are all important places for MMA too. Like you would never want to pull guard in MMA. So my
Mm.
wrestling into my jujitsu and being able to take them down and feel dominant on top for the most part, even in guard, I feel dominant. I know like those are my dominant spots is anywhere on top. On my back, I've gotten more comfortable like having someone in my guard when it's straight jujitsu, but I'd prefer being on top or taking the back.
Yeah, I think in UFC or in America, it's probably not evident. Do you ever watch like Ryzen in Japan?
Mm-mm.
There's a couple of guys. They're from Japan, but they're Brazilian. And in Ryzen, you can kick straight up, even when all fours, both knees on the ground.
Yeah.
You can kick with full force to the face
Yeah.
from your back, right? And they
Hmm.
also use their heel to like they
Yeah.
get a lot of force, and they pull guard, and they are very effective. Because it's hard to pass their guard, and they're kicking up to the face,
No, yeah,
full power. Yeah,
that's something I've been like when we do MMA
yeah.
sparring rounds at the gym and stuff. If I take them down but end up being separated, I'm like, oh dang, you can kick from where you're at. Like, I forget about that, but no, I've been working on that too. And No, yeah, for sure. Like you can get kicked in the stomach, in the face, and it from the bottom, from ground, it causes damage. That hurts for sure.
Yeah, but in Ryzen, like you can kick even if they're like I said, their hands and their knees. Like if you're
Yeah.
in guard, they can
Hmm.
just blast you full power.
That's
Like
crazy. No, yeah.
so, they're pretty effective. I think in UFC, you're right, because the top person has so much advantage with
Hmm.
leverage. You can't kick up to the face when they're grounded, and
Hmm.
you
Yeah.
can if they're standing, but there's no. If you're on your back, you're really at a huge disadvantage in the UFC.
No, yeah, for
Yeah,
sure. Yeah.
it's very interesting. Um, so tell me about getting in with Peak. So you're doing MMA. How long do you think it was before? Because I know you started training MMA really young, but
Hmm.
when the fighting was going to come, how long did that take really? Do you
Like
get an
the
offer to get
like
an offer
to
for MMA?
actually, yeah. It especially since I started with how young I was, it was really difficult to get fights because when I was younger, I was a bigger set girl. So with jujitsu, I was always in the boys divisions growing up. And then with finding fights and stuff, I'd be 13 years old, but 130 pounds or 125. And there's not a lot of 13-year-old girls that are that size. So finding a fight for me, it took so long. It was very hard for me to. So now, like, up until I was 18 and graduated to where now it's like I can pretty much fight anyone, doesn't matter the age. It took so many years to like be able to finally get here to the point to where like Peak and all them are giving me fights and everything. But I think it helped a lot with like my body being able to mature and develop and still train and learn more to where now it's like I can go with grown women in these fights and be able to know what I need to do and like be able to like be more fight mind awareness, if that makes sense. Like be aware of what's going on in the fight smartly through what I'm thinking because I've had all these years to be able to mature in that area. So
Now, were you one of the people where the coaches were talking about you in the gym, and that's why you think you got Peak interested, or how did that work?
um no, it was one of like I said, like Mark, he has really good connections
Hmm.
with people and everything like that. And he knew whenever I wanted to really start fighting and everything, he contacted Peak and was like, "Hey, I think we should try and find a fight for her." And the only option they had was the 4 ounce Muay Thai at
Hmm.
130, in which for sure we want my MMA debut to be at 115. And we're already getting there for the fight that's coming up. It will be at 117. But no, yeah, I just let him know. And Peak was kind of hesitant about it because I'm younger and I've only had one fight with them now. And they were like, oh, we'll see, we'll see, we'll see. Like, the girl she's gonna go with, she's really good. She's done all this, she's won all these things. And Mark was like, it's fine, just let her fight, and you'll see. And I was able to fight, and now we're gonna be getting more fights for sure.
It looked like they did put a little promotion behind you with the interview and stuff
Hmm.
that they did with you.
Yeah, yeah, they did, and I that's what's really great about Peak is they're able to push your name more and more out there and get more people to see you and everything. And so I really appreciate them.
Yeah, I think they just had an event here in Tulsa not long ago.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, so they're kind of out there a little bit.
Hmm. They
So
travel and yeah.
so your next fight is going to be in Texas though,
Yes, Frisco.
Frisco. Yeah.
Hmm. At
So
the
tell
Co-America Center.
how much like have you done? Do you pretty much just do all your training at your gym, or do you move around much and train with other people?
We mostly do the training at our gym just because I have, at least for me, I have good bodies there. I have Montana Delarosa, who's in the UFC.
Hmm.
I have Shauna Gomez. She's pro with Peak. She's fighting on the same card actually that I'll be fighting coming up. And and they're a bit bigger than me. Montana fights 125, Shauna fights at 135. So they're good bodies to work with. I can work with people that are bigger than me, stronger, and it'll get me feeling good for when I go with 115-pound girls. And they're pros. So it just helps me grow every single day. So for right now, um, just mostly train at the gym and everything. They have all the resources I would need, great coaches, great teammates. It's good.
For someone who's 18, you seem really mature as far as like your thought
Mm.
process toward
No,
toward the
yeah.
MMA. Why is that? Why do you think that is?
I think
Is it something like you're super into it, or is it just
no,
you
yeah,
have it?
I'm super into it, and I know that it's something I've definitely feel like I've developed, and I've watched, like I would always watch fights and stuff like that and watch like interviews and things of people talking and doing things, and
Mm.
it just has helped me be able to know how to mature mentally in that area and like talk to people about these things because I just want to be able to spread that in a way. Yeah.
Now, when you're training, like, do you prefer to do like train once a day, twice a day? Kind of how do you mix it up?
I like to train. I train in the mornings and afternoons. So I'll do two, three practices in the mornings from like 10 a.m. to 2.
Mm.
And then we'll do our afternoon classes, which will be from 6:15 to 8:30. I personally, even whenever I was wrestling in high school and everything, it was hard in high school because you have school taking up most of your day. But when there was like breaks and stuff like that, I train multiple times a day. I just think you can be tired and you can be sore and it'll suck in the moment. But once you know you have a tournament or a fight, it'll all be worth it then. Because for me, I feel like if I train too little, I don't feel prepared. I'd rather overtrain and know that, okay, I've done all this training. I feel confident in my fight or my match. So I've just always preferred to train more than I should, for
In
sure.
your period of time wrestling, how
Mhm.
many matches do you think you had roughly?
Oh my goodness.
There's a reason I'm asking this.
Yeah, I it's a lot for sure. Like
100, 200, 1,000?
3, 4, maybe
Really?
more. Yeah, definitely more. I competed like every like in the summer, it'd be every single weekend. And then including duels and stuff where it's like multiple like 8 matches a day for like 3 days. Like it's
Right.
so yeah, I definitely 400, maybe a little more for
Yeah,
sure.
that's what I was kind of tell people, you've already competed in front of people
Hmm.
a bazillion times before you
Yeah.
ever.
No, yeah, for sure. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I think that's what's gotten me comfortable because a lot of my coaches were telling me like, oh, we'll see how you do at peak when you're under the lights and stuff like that.
Right.
And
Right.
it didn't really bother me just
Mhm.
because like the big tournaments being on those stages like Fargo and even state tournaments and everything where people are surrounding you, looking at you. You just have to learn to you just can't focus on it and you just got to focus on what you're doing. And I think that's helped a lot. Like even with losing and winning, like having losses, it sucks, but it's helped you mentally know like, okay, even though I lose, it's not something you give up on. It's something you keep moving forward and pursuing.
But how do you have that? Because not everybody has that,
I
you know?
it's yeah, I think for sure I get it. I get it from my dad
Mm.
for sure because he's very like even if you lose to keep trying to achieve that goal because I remember my first ever jiu-jitsu tournament. It was in the boys division because that's all I could do. I lost every single match, like 20-0, got tapped out. And my dad told me, he was like, don't give up. Like, this is the boys. This is the boys. You have to just keep your mind. I was so upset about it. My dad told me just keep your head up, keep going. And then the next tournament I had, it was ended up being an all girls tournament, and I ended up getting first. And I was like, oh my gosh, like that's great. Like it was a good feeling to win. So I think that moment really helped me, like to where knowing like even when you lose, it's just something you've got to brush off and move forward.
Now, were you regularly cutting when you were in wrestling or no?
No, I'd only really, I guess, cut for like anything nationally, for the most part, because in wrestling, you're competing every weekend, like even in school, sometimes twice a week. So cutting, like, it's really for the boys. Really, the boys will really heavy cut hard like that.
Mm.
But no, I never, it was always usually my weight in high school. For my freshman sophomore year, I wrestled at 165. Then for my junior senior year, I ended up going down to 145. And now I'm getting to really experience like the dieting down, the cutting the weight and everything since I'm going from my walking weight being 135 all the way down to 117. I'm getting to really experience that cut and seeing the difference because now I have months to prepare or a month to prepare for it instead of each week. And I think it's so much better being able to like really focus on your weight, unlike that in wrestling where it's usually every week. But I didn't really cut that much. And for national tournaments, I did, but it wasn't anything crazy.
Plus, in wrestling, you're training a lot of like your body's more,
No,
you know.
yeah, you're definitely, I feel like more for like that's the kind of, I guess, advantage you could say. Like you could tell when people are cutting from a heavier weight and going all the way down. You can see that they do have a weight advantage. But if they're think too, like in high school, a lot of these high schoolers are doing it wrong. They're not cutting right. And so now it's like, yeah, you have this weight advantage of cutting, from such a high weight going down, but yet you're fatigued and you're tired and you're exhausted because you don't have those nutrients because you did it wrong. Instead of like now I can do it right, I can cut right, to now I can go down to 117 and I'll feel good. I'll feel great.
But what
But
I
yeah.
mean is like, do you think you were able to get down to 117? Because when you're wrestling, you're more like
Hmm.
yoked. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Hmm.
You know, do you
Yeah.
think that's why?
If I would have been able to get down then, is that what you're asking?
No, like
Or
when you see wrestlers,
hmm.
even girls,
Yeah.
a lot of them are really muscular. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
Hmm.
do you think because you're not wrestling as much, you aren't necessarily as,
Oh,
muscular
for
as you were?
sure. Yes,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah. Like I'll look at pictures back when like
Hmm.
I was wrestling at Fargo and I'm like, dang, my legs look a lot more muscular than they are right now.
Yeah.
And I think for sure because it's like you're lifting each other, you're picking each other up by just half their body, and that's all you're doing. When now it's like I can mix in my striking where I'm not always lifting, but no, yeah, for sure. I think wrestling made me way more stockier and muscular than I am right now.
And do you think that contributed to your weight being higher in wrestling?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, when you compete though, do you feel different now when you're not wrestling and you're
I
not as, you know?
Yeah, well, I feel like my cardio is so much better. My
Mhm.
stamina is so much better. On Sundays, I still go to wrestling practices on a Sunday, and it's 2 hours of just live. And when I go, before I have fully started doing MMA, I'm like, oh, I'm so tired. I'm exhausted. My stamina is bad now. It's I can go through those 2 hours and I can go through another two. Like I feel really good with my stamina. And then in my fight as well, even though I know like I've lost some muscle or weight since I've wrestled, I still like in my recent fight, I feel like my punches still felt so strong. Like I still felt so like I felt like my hands still feel heavy like they did then.
Mhm.
So I really like that. I feel like I can be faster and more stamina, but still have a heavy punch, which I think it really helps me a lot.
Yeah, really, in women's MMA, you don't see a lot of people who, when they hit, like,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, like the knockout power. That's why it's like a lot of women don't get a lot of knockouts.
mhm.
And I definitely feel like I have that power, especially going down in weight for sure. Like I think since I'm used to competing at heavier weights, and I've also been at heavier weights and competed there and have competed against people that are bigger than me. I'm training with people that are bigger than me, so my hits have to be heavier. Like I think when I go and have my fights down at lower weight, it's gonna really help me a lot and just feel just so much more dominant and stronger than my opponents.
Now, one thing that from watching MMA for so long, like your dad did too, um, when you're watching now, a lot of the fighters are shooting from the outside. Not a lot of them are fighting on the fence or clinching or that. Like
Hmm.
Randy Couture, I don't know if you watched him a lot, but that was kind of like the foundation
Yeah.
of what he did to fight in
Hmm.
the clinches. Is that something that you like? How do you feel like you use your wrestling the most when you're competing?
I for sure my wrestling, like competing like for in MMA, right? Like during my
Yeah.
sparring. Yeah. Um I like to, so whenever I do get to my takedowns and stuff, I would normally bring them to the cage, but I'm a big thrower. I like to throw. So on the cage and stuff, though, once I feel the right pressure, I'll throw you from there. But also for sure in the center. Um, Single legs, I think single legs are great. But also single legs to a double leg for sure. And if I can't pick up the double leg and drop it, I'll drive you to the cage, try and finish it there. And if I can't get it, I'll throw.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Now, like in MMA, who are you watching? Do you find that you watch it a lot?
Yeah, Girls for strike. Well,
Just in
this
general,
one's
who do you feel like
no,
you
yeah,
watch a
just
lot?
in general. For sure, I love watching all the guys. Oh my gosh, I love watching Demetrius Johnson
Yeah.
and Rob Tang for his striking. I
Oh
think
yeah,
he
yeah.
is, oh my goodness. I'm like,
He's one of my
that
favorite
is,
guys to watch in
yes,
combat sports. Period.
yeah,
Just because
that
he's
is,
so.
yeah, he's just so like, you hit him and it's like he's just a brick wall. And it's like, oh yeah, I would love to have my striking like that. And then Demetrius Johnson, he's just crazy all around. When he went against Raw Tang, I was like, that's like MMA. That's your
Hmm.
he takes you down and everything, and that was good. Um, Girls growing up, for girls, I loved Ronda Rousey, of course, growing up. But then as I got older, I loved Joanna Jacek. I loved her striking and everything with her, which she doesn't fight that much now. But those are the main people I like to watch for sure. Of course, Conor McGregor, but I feel like Conor's he's there, of course.
But as a wrestler, you don't watch a lot of the Eastern European guys, like guys from Dagestan and
No, yeah, like Khabib
the
and all of them.
Chechen.
My dad's always told me like, because he loves Khabib and all his wrestling and everything. He's like, with your wrestling, you need to be like Khabib and just tie their legs up and just punch them. And I'm like, yeah, like I for sure, yeah, I watch all the wrestlers and everything, and that's what mostly dominates the UFC. I feel like is wrestlers. Like
Hmm.
you have jujitsu people, and jujitsu is great once, yeah, you're on the ground. But I feel like so many wrestlers that go into jujitsu are able to dominate the jujitsu dominant person because they're on top. They end up in the most dominant position. I feel like that's what was really controlling the UFC is just wrestling for
Hmm.
sure.
Yeah, I think it always comes back to that. Even if there's a period of time where maybe they're not on top, they get
Hmm.
back on top,
No,
pretty
yeah.
quickly.
They're
As
just
far
they're
as
just strong. They know like
yeah.
weight and body movements and everything, body awareness, and I think that's just really important for them to have. Like that's why Khabib was just so dominant. He's able to know like, and his striking was good, but he knew like he could just take down Conor and that was it. And
Now,
he dominant.
when is your next fight?
January 25th.
And the person you're fighting, like, how many fights do they have?
She just recently fought for Peak, I believe, back in October. It was an MMA fight. She lost that fight. I was supposed to have an MMA fight for the 25th, but she ended up saying she just wanted to do stand up. So that's why we're doing the Muay Thai. But no, yeah, I believe she's won some other like little fights and stuff here and there. But as of like peak and amateur and everything, I believe she's 0-1 right now.
So you're doing another stand-up fight, not MMA fight.
Yeah. Yeah, my MMA fight which should be in March.
How many
Yeah.
fights do you think you're going to have this year?
Maybe one every month. That's pretty much what's happening. I have this peak one this month and then Rage in the Cage February. And then March we're shooting for a MMA fight with Peak, hopefully.
So you're not really tied into one since you're kind of
No, yeah,
in
no,
into it.
yes, yeah. Especially since I'm amateur, like I can't, I haven't really signed with any specific organization yet.
Yeah.
But if that opportunity comes out, for sure, me and my coaches will talk about it, and I'll for sure sign with an organization at some point.
I know you may not have one, but if you had a timetable for when you wanted to turn pro, do you have
Hmm.
anything like that or no?
Me and my coaches have talked about that. We're gonna really take our time with it, really get to a point to where kind of like how I did, I was in wrestling to where every single match I went into, it was getting to a point to where I wasn't getting nervous. Of course, I had to be like, you're going into a match, you're a bit nervous, but I was more like, I'm going to control this match and I'm going to be the one going and pursuing everything. And we're just trying to get to that point in my fighting, to where I can start going into each fight and feeling comfortable in myself, feeling comfortable in the environment and everything like that, to where when I go pro, it's like I don't even think about. I just do what I'm best at and to just feel comfortable in like bodies and everything and different types. And I'm thinking maybe 2 years, maybe 2.5 years, but just going with the flow, really.
2 years fighting every month, you think?
Yeah, maybe,
That's
possibly.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, just getting a lot of fights in and really just getting as much experience as I can and staying busy. Just so when I am pro, it's not like, because I feel like a lot of pros are one, they're a lot older for sure. And they start super quick because they're older, so they need to get into being pro quicker. And since I have time to be able I've started so early, I have some time to really settle in and figure that out. It's nice to be able to get as much experience as I can, so then it's like I'm more experienced than these pros that are older than me.
Now, if you, as a young fighter,
Hmm.
if someone was in the same position as you, 18, maybe coming out
Hmm.
of high school, and they were thinking about, for me, with your experiences, your own personal experiences, what would you say to them or advice for them, given your situation? Not in general, but yours.
No, yeah, I tell them to, if they're doing the same thing that I was doing, I'd tell them to, one, take care of your body through everything, as in like trainings and stuff like that, and all the things that you're going to be putting your body through, because it takes a lot of practice. Like, this is my full-time job. Like, I don't work. This is, I fully dedicate all of my time to this. And so that's a lot on your body, and I tell them to for sure take care of that, take care of your body and everything, because injuries can happen so quick without even knowing when you don't take care of it. You can just be in practice and anything can happen. And then also, I tell them that, let me think, to be confident in your fighting, and it doesn't matter the age or the people around you. Like, the people you're going to be fighting, don't be intimidated by, oh my gosh, they're so much older than me, or oh, they're older, so they might have more experience, or they've been doing it long. Like, don't even look at their face, don't look at their stats or anything, don't follow all that stuff. Look at their fights, yeah, and study them and break them down, but don't have it overly consume you to where you're unconfident in yourself, and when you go in there, you're not doing you because you're fighting their fight instead of fighting your fight. Yeah.
That's interesting. Like, do you think, like, what advantages do you think you have since you started so early that maybe somebody might have later on?
I for sure think my the wrestling experience I have, because I feel like wrestling is one of those things, like, it takes time to grow into. Like, I started wrestling my freshman year and I was successful my freshman year, but I'll look back on videos and I'm like, oh my gosh, I grew so much from just here to my senior year. Like, there's so much to change and grow and to become a good solid wrestler, that it takes time to be able to do that. So I think that my wrestling gives me an advantage, and the fact of I've competed for so many years, and I'm used to the nerves, I'm used to the jitter, I'm used to the lights being on you, people talking about you, people saying good things when you walk off the mat, and people yelling at you saying mean things to you when you walk off the mat. Like, I'm used to, I've heard it all, I've seen it, and so I think that also gives me the advantage.
In wrestling, when do you feel like the light came on for you? Because when you start, whether it's jiu-jitsu, wrestling, I've done all this stuff. You don't know, okay, I can go from here to here to here, or I can do this one. When do
Yeah,
you feel like the light, how long did it take for the light to come on for you, where you felt
it
like I can just do this and I'm not thinking about it?
it took me like 2 years. My freshman year, I only typical girl, only did headlocks. I mean, it was winning me matches. It helped, but after I started to feel more comfortable in my shots and I was starting to practice a whole lot more, I started to change partners and be selfish in a way of, yes, there's girls here, but they're not going to help me get better. I need to be practicing with the boys who are going to get me better and help me grow. And so that's all I did for like 2 years. For like my junior and senior year, I only trained with the boys and stuff, and wanted to look more like them when I wrestled. And that's when it really clicked for me, is when it's like, okay, like, especially even now, it's still clicking because I still go to wrestling practices and stuff. And when I'm wrestling now, I'm like, why didn't I use this back when I was wrestling? And it took me like 2 years to really start to feel comfortable to where it's like I can move my opponents and set up shots and get to other shots if that doesn't work and really be able to flow.
Now you mentioned something. I need the girl's perspective. You talked about the headlock. I've seen so many guys say it.
Hmm.
There's so many headlocks in women's MMA. Enlighten us. Why does this happen?
I think it's just where we are really comfortable at. At least for me, it was like I feel like if I took a takedown, I'm gonna get stuffed. Like I'm like, dang, if I get a takedown, like the chance of them sprawling on me and taking my back is likely. When in a headlock, boom, they're straight to their back and I'm in a dominant position. But I feel like even at high levels, like I'd watch the
Yeah.
Olympic trials and so many girls did headlocks, but it's working at the Olympic trial level. I mean, if it's there, it's there. I feel like the boys are really good at being funky and moving all fast and stuff like that. But if a headlock's there, why not just throw it? Like,
So you
you
think
know?
maybe it's that they don't want to shoot from the outside as much as that way girls do it? Why do you
Yeah,
think it is that this
yeah.
position is so common?
No, yeah, I think it's, and also too, I think it's that too. You don't, they're like mostly lighter weights will shoot from the outside, will shoot
Mm.
single legs and funky stuff. But once you start to get into a heavier weight to where when they sprawl, all that weight's on you, I feel like it just feels smarter to where in the hand fight, oh, I can slip into a headlock, or I can go for a double leg and slide up to a headlock. I think it's just easier to get to in a way to where your setups and stuff and how you wrestle.
Because a lot of girls street fights, you see it
Hmm.
too.
No, yeah, yeah. And I feel like too, like watching Ronda Rousey, I was watching
Mm.
some of her older films and I was like, she was just running in there, punch, punch, headlock. I was like, I feel like now that wouldn't work as well because I feel like there's been involvement in the women's MMA. But then at that time, that was like, I was like, oh my goodness, she can just go in there, headlock armbar every time, every single time. It was crazy.
Now, as we're kind of winding down the interview, I want to give you a chance to kind of, tell people where they can find you, and also if there's something that, like a message you wanted to get out that we didn't talk about that might be important to you.
Hmm. You could find me on. I have two Instagrams. My fighting Instagram though is Brijatte Miss America Garcia, and then my Instagram that's like just regular Instagram. I still post MMA and stuff on there. It's just Brijatte Garcia. I have some fights coming up. I'll be posting about those and everything too as well. Um, I guess something that's important to me is wanting to give all this and all these opportunities and everything. It's all glory to God for helping me get here and be able to do these things and have the body that I have to be able to do this sport that's really tough. But
Well, I really want to thank you for taking the time,
yeah,
and
thank you.
letting me put you on the show. And for
Yeah,
everybody, I encourage you to check her out and check out, support her career, check out her fight in Peak Fighting. And I always appreciate the support of everyone watching this. And until next time, take care.
thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
Second.